here to welcome Hanna Wirman.
Hi.
Ciao, Anna.
Hi, good to see you.
Great
How are
seeing
you?
you. Fine.
Great.
Ready to go till tomorrow morning.
Yes, that's a long way. There was somebody telling me they hope that I don't need to participate the whole 24 hours. And yeah, I was
It was
happy to say no.
nice advice. Well, let me just introduce you to the audience so that they know who you are, but they will see the stunning person you actually are just through the talk. So it's just a presentation. Quickly, Associate Professor at the University of Copenhagen, Center for Computer Game Research, and Dr. Hanna Wirman. You quite deeply and carefully addressed marginal and critical ways of playing and making games, including game fandoms, serious games, diversity concerns, and the design and research of animal play. You are a well-known scholar in the field of game studies, with your works published in seminal journals from game studies, television, new media, simulation and gaming and culture, transformative works and culture, just to mention a few. And I'm so honored that your last article was actually published in Game, the Italian Journal of Game Studies, of which I'm a member of the editorial board. So it's my honor.
No, it was a great opportunity and a great topic for the issue.
Yes, thanks. Well, prior to moving to Denmark, where you are currently set, you worked for 8 years in Hong Kong Politecnico University School of Design, leading game development stream of a Master of Science program and several serious games and development projects. So when we speak about filling the gap between research and practice, that's actually you in all your shades. You have been also the first president of the Chinese DIGRA, the Digital Game Research Association Chinese chapter, and you're currently the vice president of DIGRA International. So huge honor to have you here. That said, among your stunning achievements, just to mention one, the Global Game Jam in Hong Kong in 2012. Just to say how ahead of time you've been, and you led it until a couple of years ago, just before the COVID started. So, well, I think I said something, not everything.
Yeah, where do you want to start?
Well, wherever you want. I mean, your research is currently focusing on the game industry, exploring it through and out, and maybe we can start speaking about what's the situation today in the game field.
Right, yeah. It's really interesting somehow how an average person out there can say that, okay, your career is stable now and games industry is doing well. And within the industry, people are kind of aware that money-wise, things are going well. There are more players. People are playing in different ways than before, more versatile ways, cross-generational play, more casual play and things like that. But at the same time, we don't hear much stories about or kind of details about who is actually benefiting, who is doing well. Because it's of course the big players out there who were already very strongly and very well established before this all started. The so-called AAA companies and companies in general who already had the power to get games out without going to those big industry events or have the marketing capacity to broadcast their new games to everybody, right? So we have a lot of suffering in the area of indie games and smaller companies and individuals who are about to start their new studios or launch their first games. That's definitely something that is not spoken about as much as the great success that's supposedly there in the industry right now.
It stays in the background, and if you're not in the field and you don't dive deep into that, you don't know it. So what you're bringing up is actually the untold.
Sorry, Maria, that was cutting. What did you say?
Sorry, I was saying that what you're actually going to say is the untold, what that people cannot see because it's quite hidden from the audience perspective, and you have to be very into the topic and into the industry to actually see it.
Yeah, I guess this is a very kind of negative tone to start the conversation, but it kind of serves the agenda of the industry as well, that they need more workforce. Those big companies do need a lot more people right now. They're making these games, maintaining communities, being in touch with the players and so forth, because they are growing and because they are having more players than they expected, right? So it is also kind of the positive drive needs to be. Then, of course, in a general tone, it's good that for our students we can say that there are jobs out there. You don't need to worry that much.
Yeah, it's a market, but it's booming because it keeps increasing. Also, because, especially in the last years, we had this need of escape a bit from reality. Well, there has always been this way of looking at games as escapism. I know you're very familiar with that. I'm not a fan of it. I don't think it's applicable every time, everywhere. But still, it's a good way for escaping for a bit sad reality. But there are people behind it, people who are building, thinking, creating in an artistic and scientific way. So there is a whole world behind it. And
sure.
that is navigating in uncertainty, you're saying.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there are many things. There's so many things happening out there, right? Like one of the things is remote work that has come everywhere, but in the games industry, it's there probably to stay in many ways, as people say. I reached out to people in different parts of the world to ask how they are doing for this conversation, and they said, like, yeah, we are working remotely. Some people like it, some people don't. As we know, people have very different preferences and also very different situations, right? If you have your family at home, it might be nice or might not be nice to be working from home. And from I have long had my research started as gender studies, so that has been my interest here as well, which is that we have more women players right now because of the pandemic. But at the same time, while the industry is trying to attract female developers, there are also different ways to enter the industry, which might for many people be easier because you are allowed to work remotely. But then in a way, game studios have often been kind of advertised and seen as these very kind of trendy, hip, nice environments. That's like not unlike any tech studios, but game studios particularly, like you have very cozy home-like environments where you are supposedly happy to stay long hours, right? But then if we have these, so the statement goes that certain current minorities or people with disabilities, gender, more women, or different, like diversity in general, could be reached through or gained through remote work. But what does it mean then is that these bubbly, nice studios remain as very homogeneous, while we have this kind of diverse remote crowd somewhere. So what is the kind of the front end of the kind of the face of the industry in the end anyway? But it's kind of it's two sides of the same coin.
Yeah, you create also this two-level thing of who is in presence, who is in remote, who is in presence has access to certain kind of information and dynamics, who is at home working remotely, a different one. Then there are the issue about, time zones. And when the work and the private are just merging into a nightmare, a long-term nightmare, as we've been experiencing. So, yes, actually, thanks for saying that. What happens to minority? How to include minority? We've been like flagging and using the flagship of inclusion for several years, even though it's a huge constant attempt that of the field that is trying to be as much inclusive and responsible as possible, but still we have a way to do, right?
Well, it sounds like remote work is one of those positive signs that could be way to inclusion, but of course, yeah, it has the downside. But then, of course, we are missing the perks, we are missing the benefits for those who are working remotely from another country. It's much harder to organize anything, healthcare, dental care, whatever it is. So then they're working. The terms are different, and there has been calls for unionization in the games industry for a while. There has been attempts. There are some good beginnings, and there has been more now during the pandemic because people were put into very poor working conditions due to the demand. This unionization, of course, is easier to handle from the point of view of those companies when people are diverse and they are not in any specific country boundary, for instance. But yeah, those I guess the working conditions are it's so individual, and here I think it also needs to be said that while there's diversity and differences between individuals, there are also huge differences, of course, between the different kinds of game studios that we have, whether they develop for mobile platforms or for console AAA games, whether they are in Italy or if they are in Japan. How large they are in these are so hugely different.
If it's the main house or a connected corporate outsourcing part.
Right. Yes. So it's very hard to say anything in a general way because games industry is very, very, like there are games industries. We shouldn't be talking about one games industry out there.
Yeah, or a game industry with a lot of different ecosystems and variety on building it and populating it, because it's, let's say, various. And I have to say that I love it because we don't have. Okay, when I am asked to define which kind of game is it, I can think about defining that by topic, medium, or media system, technology, or whatever. And all of this is part of the diversity, just in terms of how to build games. And then it's. I didn't expect 15 years ago when I started when I entered the field, I didn't expect to have it so varied. I mean, and it's getting worse and worse. That's great.
Yeah, it's great. It's kind of, we are talking, or I'm talking about it in a negative kind of way, but it's also super great that it is so. There are so many things happening. For our students, it means that they can go to so many different directions. They can probably find exactly the kind of studio that fits their personality and fits many things in them if they search long enough, right? It takes a while, but that it also requires adaptability. Something that is kind of maybe an analog would be a programmer who is supposed to be able to learn a new language wherever they go. So you kind of, university education is to teach that mentality and kind of that way of thinking as a programmer, not necessarily
from a development point of view.
Yeah, not necessarily a single programming language. So for us in the games education, then, so I'm now involved in teaching in a games masters at the University of Copenhagen. It's different kind of adjustment. So it's about different kinds of work processes, design processes, working differently with other people, and still keeping your own somehow designer hat in there. So the adjustment is, it's new kind of.
But okay, so well, we just finished to say that it's varied and it has its own complexity that we cannot neglect. I mean, we are conscious and conscientious about that. There is awareness. But how do you manage to, since it's a tricky position, it's a tricky work, a work which requires inherently adaptation, smartness, everything, because you have to be creative and you have to be skilled in other parts, because you have to cover a different kind of requirements and criteria indeed for being a game designer, developer, writer, and it's very diverse, as said. How do you manage to form students able to face this complexity that is just right ahead and all around?
I guess part of it comes with the program design, that you simply have different kinds of people working together on a variety of projects, like a lot of teamwork where they need to work with different game interests, with different skill sets. So they kind of get to the routine of working with different kinds of people in different kinds of projects already at school, although we cannot compare to the to the real life out there. But when it comes to, let's say, these simple things as remote working methods, definitely our students have now learned many of those tools, many of the ways and difficulties and kind of benefits of working to get together online, right? Another thing I feel we are doing is kind of just to foster self-drivenness. People should have their own things to do instead of kind of trying to fit into the existing industry. So I think our education in a way is also industry forming instead of adapting to the existing needs in the industry. So we kind of try to get a little bit further than filling the jobs that are exactly right now out there. And a big thing for me personally has always been in terminology, because kind of having been trained in cultural studies and media studies, I understand that language is really important. So kind of being able to grasp very broadly the language of those industries, and the idea that you need to be able to learn that language before you are able to operate in there, and not to be intimidated with the kind of, it's also exclusive. It alienates when you don't know what people are talking about. So kind of the braveness in asking what people are talking about, and what do we mean by this word in this context, because I have been using it in a different way in another place. So kind of such a small thing, and I feel can help the students to navigate more and kind of adjust better.
Anna, that reminds me of when I also started to work with colleagues in the media studies, media culture field, and the different, and also design, of course. The terms agency was a nightmare.
Yes.
Let's not dig into that, but
No.
we spent some time in understanding, okay, what's the thing we have to understand, and what are we talking about, not to speak about affordances. And it's just great when we have our own delicious terms, like terrific ones, like immersion.
Yes.
And that's what made me fall in love with the field, because we have our terminology and it's wide, and we stole things everywhere, and we appropriated them, with them our own, and also within the field we've been able to make some differences and to use them in a different way. So we are making our creative mindset also into the way in which we've been building the field in the last 20 years. And I think that's making funny our field, because it's a surprise, a constant surprise. And I'm laughing because I'm thinking about how a student that is approaching that could react to this mess.
Yeah, and there's kind of many of the terms, for instance, that we specifically use as part of our education, the students already know, but they know them from the game culture or from the player's perspective, or some of them have been in the industry, so they know the industry definition of the term. But then when we are in the classroom, we might have 5 more definitions for the term that come from different theories and different times in history, right? So it's also like, I think in games there's this variety that comes also from those 3 places, that there is the industry, there is the kind of the public parlance, and then there is the academic one. We are using exactly same words, but with slightly different meanings. And then you can find this terminology, like a vocabulary, or like descriptions of the things, definitions online, and you don't know which category does it belong to. So it's beautiful and confusing for the students at the same time, but that's definitely part of doing game design and game development and research.
Let's say that just from that, for being a game designer, game developer, whatever you want to be, you have to, let's say, put your soul at peace and understand that we are our keyword is variety for real. In as many ways as possible. And if some way is not yet included and embedded, we will, because it's something that is going to happen. Also from the fields like sociology, anthropology, ethnography, we have been like collecting, grasping from computer science, from wherever, because it just makes sense. And so the vocabulary that our students are building is actually a huge luggage.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it finds a little bit different form now that we are discussing a lot online, and we are using this Discord, for instance, a lot with our students, which has really helped us to communicate things. And when things are in the written form, then it somehow becomes maybe in a chat, in a way, it's less official, but then it's written. So it becomes a kind of that you really need to know what you're saying, what do you mean by this term? And then you are lacking the cue. So I guess we are contesting the terminology even more there. But there could be something else said about the online methods, teaching methods that we have had now. So when you ask about how do we help students to navigate the space, then it would definitely be through, since they are lacking the, let's say, real networking opportunities. Right now, we try to provide as much as possible chances to meet people from the industry. So guest talks, studio visits. We have had wonderful studio visits organized by my colleague Martin to very different places, and it wouldn't have been possible to go to so many places with such a big crowd if it hadn't been this situation, right? So it's kind of, for them, it's maybe they don't get those true face-to-face meetings with the people in the industry, and maybe nobody will remember their faces in the future, but they have had a different kind of take on visiting game studios. And also for those industry experts whom we have had to participate, our guest talks has been really, really kind of nice. That for them, sometimes, of course, it's an hour, it might be preparation, it's a huge commitment from anybody, and we appreciate them greatly. But maybe it is also a little bit easier because it's just yet another Zoom window. And maybe it's not the most scariest Zoom window when you have students there who are simply appreciative and eager to hear what you have to say.
And then, let's say that clearly the pandemic situation opened up, increased the access level to technology, because entering certain studios' calendars or experts' calendars has always been a nightmare, because they were traveling all around. It was really difficult to grasp them in the right moment. And also before, actually, building up a call in distance was not so easy peasy. Now people are used to that. So if we have to say that we have a very bad situation in terms of Zoom fatigue and so on the other side, we cannot avoid saying or help saying that it also gave us some opportunity in terms of reaching out to people, and also habits for the future, because we are no more scared about doing lessons online or something online. It's just something we are now used to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
And somehow
in many of those platforms, not to name the names again, but not promoting any specific platform, but people in the industry are suddenly much closer because they are in the same ecosystem with their silly nicknames like everybody else.
Yes, I do remember very well. Well, it's 4 minutes to go. I will just like, if you want to send or say a word about kind of a message for tomorrow's designers surfing in the uncertainty in which we are, before leaving the stage to the next guest.
Yeah, thanks for giving me the chance to opt out from answering, but let me try. I feel there's kind of something to be said about, like, yes, okay, you need to adapt and you need to be flexible and all those things, but at the same time, things take time. and you cannot get anything done if you just get on board on every single thing that is happening and try to adjust. So kind of to be able to maintain some kind of focus and persistence on individual goals and projects is just kind of, it's really important. Because there are so many cool things, especially like in games. It has long time been in difficulty that there are so many cool things happening, so many new technologies. You could just hop from place to place to place, and it's attractive and it might be nice, and you might be the first one to publish on a certain platform or whatever. But as a long-term career choice or as a foundation for a career of a young person, that might not be the best way to go. Instead, kind of get something done properly over time. Maybe that would it count?
Yes, now we can keep discussing because we still have 3 minutes. So yes, we can go with that because when you're young, you don't know where to go. And you are just said eager to do something and trying to make the difference. So it's or to see appreciation for your work. That's that's something. But I really appreciate what a lot of universities are doing. That is showing works to the outside, being aware that. It's no more a matter of disclosing something that can be copied or because years ago there was also this problematic issue, but now it's more like giving the opportunity for showing to others, for having like a stage, a protected space where to start getting known, to make connections, as you were saying before, moments in which welcoming people from the industry, people from the field, and creating good relationship within the protected space of the university. That is now no more, okay, see you, have a good graduation day and bye-bye, but it's more like taking care of students in this way. And I do really appreciate that. It's
and we kind of, from an academic point of view, it's great for us professors as well to have those strong connections, because as much as our work can be informed by actual current practices in the industry, the better it becomes, no matter if we are aligned or if we want to oppose them, but we should be aware of what is going on. And I guess that's the criticality we want to convey to the students as well.
Yes, together with you don't have to be ready to work today, but tomorrow, the day after, and so on, because that's a formamentis and a way of being able to make it through whatever it will happen. And so, well,
in that sense, there are like great opportunities also to start remote work faster. So remote work is definitely something that you could kind of hop on easier without getting your visa to another country or signing a lengthy contract, legal document for another country and so forth.
Yes, that's fully right. Well, I take the last minute for saying thank you so much, Hanna, for joining the conversation, for having this lovely chit chat, and you didn't bring any negative perspective, just speaking out how it is. And I'm super happy of being able to converse about it in this open way, because it's great. So thank you so much.
Likewise, thank you so much.
Take care and see you soon.